Welcome to the 5th episode of Vibe Tribe. Start off the show by reading some of my, you can go to the Vibe Tribe at gmail.com and you can just, you can, send your suggestions. You can, ask for any advice. I offer my unsolicited advice on any topic. And I'm reading an email here from Amber. She is a friend of mine, and she says, "Hey, I think a really prevalent topic currently is people's thoughts on anxiety and depression, mostly anxiety, and how it affects life, relationships, children, etc. I know people have such different opinions on this topic, and I have suffered anxiety. I've suffered anxiety, depression, and everything, and I think that one of the things that I learned is that you have to create like a toolbox. You know what I mean? So when you, it's inevitable. Like you are you're gonna have anxiety when you present something new. When you are presented with like a task that you never done before, and then you just have to like step in, and then then you start having anxiety and all this. But one of the things that I learned is that you have to create like this like a toolbox. So this in this toolbox, you're gonna have like, what do I do when I become anxious? What am I gonna do to not only, because anxiety it's a part of being a human, right? Like it's an emotion, just like happiness, sadness, depression, anxiety, and all this, it's just part of being human. But the only thing is that you have to do is like how not to let it run your life or control your life. And in this toolbox, I feel like everybody has to create this toolbox where whenever you feel anxious, or whenever you feel that your depression is crawling up or whatever, then you can just take the tools that you need, whether if it's like a stress reliever, or if it's something that you do to like relieve stress, whether if it's like walking or writing or listen to music and all that. And I think it's important to have that toolbox. It could be many things. It can include yoga. It can include meditating. It include doing stuff or doing something that's for others, and it can. There's a realm of things that you can do, but I think the important thing is to create that toolbox. With that being said, it's really hard. It's really hard. When you are, when you're a parent, when you're a father, when you're trying to be a family member and trying to deal with like this depression, anxiety, and it's really hard. It's really hard, especially when you have to do family events or something. It's really hard to just get out there and like get up, and like it just seems like it's a task, like you have to like it's work to get in, to just do anything, and it affects everything, and I think it affects your it affects like your concentration. It affects like your interaction at work. It affects like how you tackle tasks. I think at work too, like you can't focus. It creates many errors, and I'm telling you this from experience because I it's something that I dealt with. And when I was a teenager too, like where I was like I couldn't concentrate. I pushed everybody away, and I just want to be by myself, and that was my life, right? Like I didn't think like that there was more to that. You know what I mean? Like my time just consumed. My depression consumed most of my time. Like I just didn't know how to cope with it. I didn't have that toolbox that I'm telling you. But it affects everything, especially the hardest thing is that it can affect your children. If you have children, it can affect them. And I think it's just like a vicious cycle, right? And I think it's a cycle that you have to break, that you have to, and sometimes it just, requires like, professional help, and just having a good, a group of people that that you can go to them and be like, hey, this has been going on, this is normal or not. Because I think, you are so depressed sometimes, like it just, it becomes like it's so, it feels like almost natural to you, right? Like that's all you know. But no, I think, there's more. There's more to life than just, dedicating just all your energy and time into, trying to get better, trying to deal with the depression. But definitely, so you have the toolbox, and then also, seeking professional help and having a group of people. And those are the things that I didn't have when, growing up, that I had to figure everything by myself. But not everybody, everybody grows up differently. And but that's the thing that I wish I would have learned, later on in life. But it's just part of it. It just reminds me of like this book that that I was reading. It's called Homo Sapiens, and it's about like how it's about pretty much just like the story of like humankind. The story of humans, and how there's things that are in our DNA that we can't change. That there's reasons, or there's a lot of explanations why we act, certain ways, like for example, this book's, it talks about like how we crave sugar so much, and it talks about like the cavemen, how the cavemen, they were hunters and gatherers, and they would gather like berries and strawberries and whatever, and so they when they had an opportunity, when they would gather berries or whatever, like they would overeat, because because they didn't know the next day or the next time that they were going to eat. And same thing with like meats and everything, and it makes sense. And I think that might be an explanation why we crave sugar, or why it triggers that part of our brain, when we consume sugar, and then sometimes we're addicted to sugar. I mean, I at times I'm one of those people that they crave the sugar, that but it's one of the things that we have to be careful. And it's just very interesting. It's a very interesting book. It's called Homo Sapiens. I believe it's called Homo Sapiens: The Story of Mankind, and it just gives you like a different perspective, and it talks about like how the cavemen, they travel in groups, so how they like how man just fathered any kid in the tribe, and that was one of the reasons why I named this this podcast the Vibe Tribe, because of that. Because they just kind of travel in groups, and they were a tribe, and then they just they would just take care of each other. It didn't matter. It didn't matter whose kid it was, but they would just father them as their own. Like nobody knew whose kid it was, because back then they it's like they share partners, and it also explains why there's a lot of infidelity, because so it talks about that, about like how there's just stuff in our DNA that it might explain our our kind of like our behavior, and when we face like certain situations. And but I truly want to live in a world where I can that I can just fall in love with somebody, like fall in love and then just be with this person, and then just trying to if we're happy and we're in love for 5-10 years, great. And then we just hate each other after that, like we can just like move on and go our separate ways. I do want to live in a world where we can do that, and not be so like embedded into our beliefs, and and sacrifice our happiness, and sacrifice so many things. But there are things that just are embedded in our DNA, and so I started thinking about that, like about our feelings, like happiness, sadness, being excited, being stubborn, like all that are just feelings. But then when it's taking over your life, that's when it becomes a problem. So it's like a matter of like just trying to control your emotions, try to try to control your emotions, and it's a thing that you have to practice, like it's a thing that you just have to actively work on. That's the thing that I worked on. But the thing that I've done is that I've been reading, kind of like about how you can use not trauma, but how you can use pain to create a piece of art. So I've been reading about like how you can use memories, especially the hardest memories, and sometimes like that can create a connection with people, and how it can, derive, or art, great pieces can derive from pain. If you look, like from a lot of art, from like Van Gogh or Monet, or like all those, very known artists, like how there's a lot of pain, and I see that, like I see it translates to me, like it, like when I look at a painting, it's not just a painting, it's demonstrating something, it's like demonstrating a message, or something, and there are times where I'm just like, it moves me, like emotionally, like, and that's when artwork can do that, like that's awesome, you know what I mean, like when artwork can do, and a piece of art can do that, it can move you, and that's when it's a masterpiece. I did have the pleasure to see like the Van Gogh experience, Van Gogh experience, which is like a traveling art, I guess you could call it an art installation, and it's been like just traveling all over the world. It's kind of like it's pretty much like Van Gogh's greatest pieces of art projecting on like these huge canvases, and I had the opportunity to go to Milwaukee over there at the art museum, and it was just incredible. And the thing about it, that was interesting about it, is that just how moved I was. Like I just went open, and just without having any preconceived notions, and how it just moved me, like how they did really good job in like creating like a nice atmosphere, and the music, it had like all this violin pieces, attached to a lot of his artwork, and how it was displayed, and they just displayed it like on these huge canvases, and there was something that moved me, and I think seeing his artwork like being multiplied, by 100 times, and there were some pieces that because I think there was some they were panoramic, and some of his artwork, it involved like a sailboat, and then like a landscape, and then water, and then that water kind of translated, or it started moving in the painting, in the canvas, like when they were projecting it, and it was so cool, like it just kind of moved me, and I mean, it didn't not enough to tears, right? But I did come out a different person coming out of it, and I use that as therapy. You know what I mean? I just use that as therapy, trying to do things like that feed the soul in a positive way. You know what I mean? And that's what I put in my toolbox. That's what I put in my toolbox. And but what I'm trying to say is that you can sometimes make that pain into something great. Like it doesn't need to be. You can do something with that pain. You know what I mean? And I think me going through depression or whatever, like made me like just a better person. It made me more appreciative of things, and I think it's unfortunately it happens. Sometimes like it's just you can have all the right things going out for in your life, but for some reason like you just have a chemical imbalance, and you just sometimes you just need a little bit of a push, a little help. Yeah, we start off like really heavy on the topics here, on depression, and Yeah, I mean, and it's definitely I do believe that you know that's why I strive to always treat people with respect and integrity, and because I know that's what I say. I know sometimes we read the question like, "Well, does hell exist?" I think it does. It does exist, but it doesn't exist. It's not a physical thing that you can touch. It's more of an idea or a thought. You know what I mean? And but that sometimes like that hell doesn't translate. Uh, to others as we think. You know what I mean? Like I've seen people who are just they to me they seem like super happy. They got everything together, but deep inside they're just broken. And I've seen that, and I have people confess, to me that, and I'm just surprised. Like it just comes in different ways. So and I think that's our part. Not only to recognize like how it affects relationships, but also try and the other people, we have a responsibility to treat others with respect and understand them. And I think we, as a society, we will go a long way if we just understand each other, and then we just talked and just listen to each other. I mean, if you ever have a conversation with me, one of the things that you notice is that I'm a very good listener, because it's important to be a good listener. And I think I'm a very opinionated person. I'm a very like authentic person, but also it's important for the other person to let the other person do the same, to be their authentic self. So in order to do that, I think you just have to be a good listener. So one of the perks of being my friend is that, or if you're my friend, that I'm gonna be a good listener, and I'm just like, I'm gonna let you talk, and then I'm listening, then I'm processing every little syllable that you are speaking. So it's important to help others and to listen, like really listen. You know what I mean? To actively listen, and I think that's important.